Welcome to The Explainer. So, when you think of the Panama Canal, what comes to mind? Probably a simple shortcut for ships, right? Well, what if I told you its story is actually one of catastrophic failure, institutionalized racism, and now a looming environmental crisis? Today, we're going to re-examine this so-called engineering marvel to uncover all of its hidden costs.
And this quote right here, it just nails it. We're not just talking about concrete and steel and water. No, the Panama Canal is a living, breathing lesson in the true and often brutal price of human ambition.
You know, when it first opened back in 1914, the canal was hailed as this absolute triumph. And look, for good reason. It sliced the journey between the Atlantic and Pacific by over 12,000 kilometers. It completely rewrote the rules of global shipping and military strategy for an entire century.
But here's the thing. That triumph was only possible after a truly catastrophic failure. And understanding the difference between these two attempts, well, it's crucial. It marks this massive shift in how we think about engineering, medicine, and just managing huge projects.
Okay, so first up, you had the French, led by the same guy who built the Suez Canal. And they made a fatal mistake. They assumed Panama's jungle was just like Egypt's desert. It wasn't. They tried to dig a sea-level canal and were just swallowed by mudslides, disease, and eventually total bankruptcy. The Americans, they watched all this, learned from the disaster, and completely changed the plan. They came up with the ingenious lock system we have today, and, this is key, they waged a scientific war on the diseases that had just decimated the first attempt.
So yeah, the whole project spanned over 3 decades, but look closely at that timeline. See that dividing line? There's a 15-year gap between the French giving up and the Americans taking over. That pause, that was an absolutely critical period of rethinking that ultimately made the whole thing possible.
But this incredible engineering success, it came at a deeply, deeply tragic price. The canal was, and I mean this quite literally, built on a foundation of human suffering. And the numbers, well, they're just hard to even wrap your head around.
25,000. That's the estimated total death toll across both eras. Just let that number sink in. This isn't just a statistic. It's a number that forces us to completely re-examine that simple, clean narrative of triumph.
And the brutal reality gets even clearer when you break down those numbers. The French era, it was a medical apocalypse. Around 20,000 workers died, mostly from yellow fever and malaria. Now, the American effort was way better on the disease front, but you still had thousands who lost their lives to dynamite blasts, landslides, and just horrific industrial accidents.
And this staggering human cost wasn't just bad luck. It was institutionalized. The whole project ran on a segregated payroll system called the gold versus silver roll. If you were a white, skilled American, you were on the gold roll. Better pay, screened housing, good healthcare. But the huge majority of laborers, mostly black workers from places like Barbados and Jamaica, they were on the silver roll. They got paid less, were crammed into unsanitary barracks, and bore the absolute brunt of the disease and the danger.
So how does this thing actually work? Because the crucial thing to understand is the canal isn't just some long ditch dug across a country. Nope, it's a complex, continuously managed hydraulic machine that works kind of like a series of giant water elevators. The genius of it is this. Ships are lifted step by step, about 85 feet up from sea level. They sail across this massive, man-made lake called Gatun Lake. And then they're lowered back down on the other side. This whole innovative lock system, basically a staircase of water fed by a river, was the key that finally unlocked the continental divide. But, and this is a huge but, this elegant solution is incredibly thirsty. Every single time a ship goes through those original locks, a massive amount of fresh water, we're talking 200,000 cubic meters, is used to lift it. And then it's all just discharged into the sea. That water, it's gone forever.
And the physical heart of the whole challenge was the Culebra Cut. This wasn't just digging. It was a constant, relentless war against nature. You had workers and steam shovels fighting these deadly, non-stop landslides in what was one of the most dangerous industrial environments ever created.
All right, let's fast forward to today. How is this 100-year-old marvel holding up in the 21st century? Well, it's now facing a whole new set of unforeseen challenges that are testing its limits all over again.
You know, for almost a century, the canal literally dictated the size of the world's ships. That was the Panamax standard. But the massive 2016 expansion, that changed everything. It created a new, bigger set of locks for these gigantic new Panamax ships that pretty much dominate global trade now.
But that huge expansion brought a brand new vulnerability to the surface. The main challenge is no longer about moving Earth or conquering mountains. The single biggest problem for the Panama Canal today, its limiting factor, is managing a resource that's getting more and more scarce: fresh water.
And the consequences are stark. Right now, because of climate change and severe droughts, the Canal Authority is being forced to limit the number of ships that can pass through, and even reduce how much cargo those ships can carry. So these local water shortages in Panama are now sending massive shockwaves through the entire global supply chain.
So, after looking at its entire history, the engineering, the human cost, the modern challenges, what's the ultimate takeaway? What does the Panama Canal's long, complicated story really mean for us today?
Well, its legacy is really a profound paradox. On one hand, it's this benchmark of engineering genius, but on the other, it's a brutal example of exploitation. It's a story about learning from disaster, but it now stands as this fragile, critical link in our modern world, a constant reminder that every great ambition carries a hidden cost. You see, the canal's story, from its tragic beginnings all the way to its climate challenge present, is more relevant than ever. It forces us to ask this one critical question, not just about the past, but for all the massive infrastructure projects we're building today, and the ones we're dreaming of for tomorrow.